Greetings. Hi, I am Sharon Roberson Pinder. I'm the President and CEO of the Capital Region Minority Supply Development Council and the operator of the U.S. Department of Commerce Minority Business Development Agency's first business center in the Commonwealth of Virginia. For Capital Region Minority Supply Development Council, we are one of 23 regional affiliates of the National Minority Supply Development Council, and our mission is to certify, connect, develop, and advocate for minority businesses across the Capital Region and across this country. This year, we are especially excited as we celebrate 50 years of connecting minority-owned businesses with contracting opportunities across the private sector. We hope that you have enjoyed the last year of our Hotchat podcast discussions. In case you've missed any of our featured guests, you may visit our media center or on our website at www.crmsdccares.com. Today, I'm telling you, this is one for the record books. We are speaking with Selena Cuffe, President of Sodexomagic and co-founder of Heritage Link Brands. SodexoMagic is a $600 million joint venture founded in 2006 between NBA Hall of Famer Earvin Magic Johnson and French food and facility management company Sodexo, which is one of our corporate members, of course. So stay tuned for a great discussion. You know, as we do this around 2022, I think that a lot of historic things have taken place over the last couple of years. But I'm telling you, hear me now, believe me later. When you hear this young lady, the conversation that we'll have with her, all that she has accomplished, you too will be impressed out of your mind. Let me just say a little bit about her. I'm not going to give you a lot of things because I really want to talk to her we're going to talk about SodexoMagic, her becoming president. We're going to talk about what she has done as the co-founder of Heritage Links brand, but we're also going to talk about Selena as the woman, the myth, and the legend. And she is co-founder, as I said, with Heritage Link Brands. In that position, she's responsible for strategic, award-winning initiatives that have accelerated business outcomes and empowered diversity and equity within the global wine industries. Doesn't this sound really exciting and exotic and interesting? Ms. Cuffe is also president of Sodexomagic, a joint venture, as I shared with you, between Magic Johnson and Sodexo. And Sodexo is located here in our territory in Maryland. Her authority includes business transformation, digitalization, corporate strategy, agile operations, change management, marketing, corporate social responsibility. She has a laundry list of accomplishments, whether it's how she serves as the overseas studies advisory council at Stanford University. She's vice president emerita of the Global Alumni Board at Harvard Business School. She serves as the audit committee of the Harvard Business School. She chairs the nominating and governance committee for Harvard Business School women. I mean, I'm telling you, this resume will choke a horse. So let's just bring her on so you can see just how she's a beast and she's a beauty too. Ladies and gentlemen, Selena Cuffe.
So kind of you.
Oh, but it's the truth. I only tell the truth, shame the devil. We are so excited to have you here because I really want to talk to you about just what you did with Heritage Brands, which is kind of like monumental, just kind of growing up in California, what you have done. You've been with Sodexo now, what, 2 years?
3 years.
3 years. We remember when you were named president, and I just had this wonderful picture with Magic Johnson when he came to NMSDC. I think, where were we? Atlanta, I think. And I was able to come to the reception with Daria and had a picture taken with him. So I show it to everybody like I really know him. But anyway, but let's just talk a little bit about you, if you don't mind, because I think you just have such a great, I mean, I don't know many people with their own Wikipedia page. And so if we, we look at just your childhood, because I'm always interested in somebody, successful like you are, a businesswoman, entrepreneur. How did it start with the DNA? And so tell us a little bit about where you grew up. And I know that you ended up going, what you did, undergrad where?
Undergrad at Stanford.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
But
So,
I'm
mhm.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I first thank you for all of the very kind remarks that you shared. It's an honor to be here with the Capital Region Minority Supplier Development Council. I am a big proponent of the NMSDC and credit our membership in the Southern California Minority Supplier Development Council to the advancement of Heritage Link brands, as well as the great progress that we've made as now a Corporate Plus sponsor for SodexoMagic, which is a part of the same council. Um, I really grew up in, I would say, a very non-traditional type of family in that
Hmm.
I am the youngest of 5 children on my mother's side, the youngest of 3 children on my father's side, but the only child of my 2 parents together.
Okay.
And my siblings are all more than 10 years older than me. So I really do
Okay.
feel like I grew up as an only
Only
child.
child.
And my father passed away before my second birthday. So I grew up really as the daughter of a frontline worker who had incredibly bold ambition for me, even though she did not achieve a degree past, she did not really achieve academics past high school. So my day to day was realizing and seeing my mother work a job as a customer service representative at Hertz Rent-A-Car at LAX and
Hmm.
be at the whim and mercy of whoever her manager was at the time and what those effects did to our schedule. And when I say our, I mean whether or not she was able to pick me up from school or whether or not I had to work or walk to school. And so I remember as a very young child, 6, 7 years old, asking her, "Why don't you just quit your job? You don't like it. You complain about it. Why don't you just quit your job?" And her narrative to me was always, I can't quit my job. When you have kids, you have responsibilities. When you don't have a college degree, you have limitations. Why don't you go out and do it differently? Make sure you get
Mm.
grades so that you have better options than I did. And so I took it to heart. And in a way, my young mind didn't understand why she didn't like her job. I loved to go visit my mother at work because she was always dealing with people coming on and off of flights,
Sure.
bus drivers, the other representatives at the desk. When I would be in the break room with them, they would always be trying to either feed me or they would buy my Girl Scout cookies. So her ecosystem for me was like a second family. But again, I knew that in order for me and for her to be successful, because what child doesn't want to see their mama do well,
Absolutely.
I knew that I needed to focus on academics, which is what I absolutely decided to do. And in second grade, believe it or not, I had decided that I wanted to go to Stanford, not because I knew what Stanford was, but there was a test that to get into this private school that I was eligible for scholarship for, you had to take, it was called the Stanford Achievement Test. And my
Wow.
very best friend didn't get in and I did. And so that opened up the door to what is this school that is even that important to administer this test, and how do I leverage this to my benefit so that we can have a better quality of life. And so reading through at the time encyclopedias to try to understand what it was, I learned that that was the place that I wanted to be. And throughout my formative years, I just really focused on that and was able to realize that as an opportunity for sure. But while at Stanford, life was not so easy for me for a number of reasons. Number one, I had incredible culture shock. It was the first time I'd been in an environment where I was the minority, if that makes sense.
No, it
And
does. Hmm.
growing up in LA, in the late 70s, early 80s, I mean, I grew up in an environment, the View Park Windsor Hills environment, which was very, very diverse from the standpoint of the types of neighbors we had. There were doctors, there were lawyers, there were people that worked at the airport. It was very middle and upper middle class. But when I got to Stanford, there, there were fewer of us. And that for sure made me have the imposter syndrome and feeling like, do I really belong
Mm,
here? Do I have
mhm.
what it takes? I was meeting people for the first time that had gone to boarding schools and felt like they were just so much more on top of understanding concepts, languages, courses than I was. But made it through that first year. And then the second year that I was at Stanford, I was in a very bad car accident where
Mm.
I was driving to go see friends at UC Berkeley, which is about an hour or so to the northeast of Stanford, and was cut off by a driver, ended up flipping over to the other side of the freeway. Two of my girlfriends were ejected from the car. One
Oh my
was
goodness.
instantly killed, and the other one was in critical condition and in a hospital for months. And so that experience completely devastated me.
Now,
Uh,
did you escape injuries yourself?
I had not a single scratch.
Isn't that something?
And that was what was so difficult. There was, for sure, I would say the majority of my sophomore year, because the accident happened in October and school just started in September. I was for sure depressed most of my sophomore year and
Sure.
really questioned, why did I survive that crash? But my dearest friend, Jessica Williams, rest in peace, she didn't. And it took literally 2 to 3 years and a stint of study abroad, which was always a part of the plan as an international relations major. But it was really on that journey that I realized, and I had a lot of conversations with God around, okay, I'm here. It's clear that you have me
And
here
it
for a purpose and a
was my
mission.
assignment.
Yes, and not only am I here for my own assignment, but I have
Mhm.
to live out for the legacy of this incredible woman who was destined to be an engineer, who
Mm.
was, doing things through the Inroads internship program. I mean, she was
Mhm.
making us all proud. And so it was now the onus was on me that my life had to be purpose driven, if not just for me, also for her. And so I took that approach to everything that I did, from doing inroads internships in banking, because again, for me, the theme was, how do I make sure that financially my family is in a position where we have more options than I did or that my mother did. But then I think what was unique about where I was gaining my perspective from was the fact that even though my father had passed away, I knew that he had graduated from Tuskegee. He was a
Ah,
Tuskegee Airman, as was his older brother, and that my grandmother had graduated as one of only 6 women in her class at Tuskegee in the class of 27. So I knew that on my father's side, there was this extraordinary legacy and history of accomplishment and achievement that allowed for me to know that there were other things possible beyond what I could see on a daily basis.
so is that when you found out about your linkages in Ghana in terms of being a part of the Ashanti tribe?
Actually, I found out my linkages to Ghana and the connection to the Timne tribe and the Ashanti tribes through
Get out.
AfricanAncestry.com.
Okay.
Doing the research, gosh, this was close to 20 years ago now. It was at the forefront of innovation then, but
Mhm.
it was through those connections that I was able to then look back at all of this history and all of these files that my father's people had kept to make the connection back to West Africa.
Wow. So so on you stood on the shoulders your mother, your friend, it sounds like your grandmother or great grandmother, these women that have who had made this path for you, and I just love the fact that you figured out at a young age that there was a purpose driven kind of life for you.
Absolutely, and I mean, it came from a lot of heartache, that notion of having it be purpose
Sure.
driven, because before that, I was much more focused on me and mine and my own family. Having that experience with Jessica and the car accident opened up for me the scale and scope with which I needed to affect impact. It couldn't just be about me and mine. It had to be something greater and bigger, because why would my life be sacrificed if not so?
And
And you're right, it was through my grandmother's legacy at Tuskegee, not only was she, the first, first of a few women to graduate from that school, but she had a mathematics degree when she graduated and eventually went on to be the principal of two schools in Waycross, Georgia.
Did you
And
say 1927?
1927.
Hmm.
There weren't women graduating from college, regardless of color, in
Right.
1927 in
27.
large numbers. And
Right.
so to know that there were these trailblazers whose dreams and hopes live within me for sure fueled me. The fact that, my father was able to not only become a pilot when, that program was incredibly rigorous and
Sure.
challenging to get into, but also his brother did it. And then after his service, he went on to graduate from the University of Kansas Medical School, the number two in his class before moving to LA to do his fellowship at UCLA, which is how ultimately I ended up being here.
Okay. And that's how they met.
And that is how they met. That
Okay.
is how they met. But then again, the struggle
Yes.
of the frontline essential worker who is often underappreciated, who is often vulnerable to the whims of
Mhm.
managers who have control, that experience also developed a sense of empathy for people that have decisions made for them and that can or cannot be in their best interest, and how can I be a catalyst to ensure that their satisfaction is high, because ultimately they are the ones that are interfacing with customers and are really the breadwinners that allow for business to be run.
And you found out early on that in life, having options
Absolutely.
is extremely important.
It is being
Yeah.
able to have the choice is something that cannot be taken for granted, because it's not everybody's destiny to live out their passion and to do things that bring them joy. Sometimes you have jobs that you hate, and you have to
Mhm.
figure out how to do what you can to take care of your responsibilities and or your loved ones.
That's absolute. So it's really interesting to see, with the last year, the great resignation when people just said, "I've had it," and just kind of walked away, which was kind of really brave. That's a whole different conversation. But you're absolutely right that people suffer um, for years because of obligations that they have and sacrifices they make for family and that they endure because they have to make the money. So share with us, Selena, if you don't mind. So, so thank you for giving us that insight into shaping the woman that you are by your experiences, the joys and the pain. How did you go from, how did you end up? I wanted a couple of things um, at Harvard and interestingly enough, at United Airlines for a while.
Oh, that was such a wonderful job to be in my
Mhm.
early 20s and to have the responsibility of first a sales territory. I was the account executive for the state of Nevada and Northern Arizona for United Airlines, which was great because I had a virtual role in the late 90s. And on the weekends, I would look at the loads on my laptop and decide where I was going to fly for the weekend to go enjoy myself.
Isn't that wonderful?
So I would do things like fly to Melbourne, Australia to go see the Australian Open. And because I knew that it was light up in the front cabin, I would get first class going and coming, and then make it into the office just in time to start the day. And then I would do things like, fly to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and take a tango class just because I could. So that was really as a result of having options and
Hmm.
seeing a job opportunity in the LA Times when there was actually still a newspaper to flip through, and
Right.
thinking, you know what, I am an international relations major. I speak Spanish, I speak Portuguese. I could probably do this job at United, and just going for it, having the confidence to pursue something, even though it said I needed to have 5 years of sales experience beforehand. I never really felt like the rules had to apply if I could show that the value proposition I brought to the table would ultimately help United win more business, grow its revenue. And so,
Lena, I have to stop you right there because I want our audience to kind of to marinate on what you just said. having the confidence. You looked at something and maybe dollar for dollar didn't look like that, you had the paper, but you had the confidence to pursue it anyway. And people need to hear that, because that's how you make things happen, that not let things get into your way. I'm sorry, I just had to make that point.
It is the truth. I, I
Hmm.
I I knew when I applied for that job that I had a passion for travel. I had a passion for people, and I felt like I could at least talk myself into the room so that they could see all of that and allow for me to show the value that I could bring to the enterprise. And so that is how I first ended up in the sales role. And through relationship building, that led to me applying for a number of jobs at United's headquarters in Chicago. The first two I did not even get, but there were people within the enterprise that saw in me an opportunity to do more than I was doing in that role, which I had only really held for 15 months. And so I ended up moving over to Chicago to take on a role as business development manager for United.com, where I
Wow.
worked on the creation of
Hot,
um,
hot wire
hot wire
and
orbits.
orbits. Yeah.
Absolutely. Getting people to purchase tickets online, which now seems like an everyday thing. And the reason that I ended up at Harvard was because I was the only person on my team that was of color, which is, in these parts, no surprise. One of only two women, but I was the only person on my team that did not have an MBA. And this
Mm,
team was exceptional in that the leaders had either gone to the University of Chicago or they had gone to Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management. And so I initially thought I would end up at one of those, but
mm,
the power of networks, and I will give a ton of credit and homage to my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, because it has actually been the key catalyst for a lot of the opportunity in my life. And one of my big sisters was a student at the Harvard Business School. And she happened to be in Chicago, and we were having brunch one day. And she was like, if you're looking at Kellogg and Chicago, why don't you fly since you got all these benefits? Why don't you fly and come spend the day with me and come sit
uh-huh.
in a class? And I was like, okay. And that totally changed my life because after
Wow.
that, in one of the classes, which all of the classes at the business school, unlike other business schools, the Harvard Business School has since day one in 1913 taught its classes through Socratic method, which really means that you have a professor who more so serves as an orchestrator, and it's really the class that teaches itself. And I found
Mm,
myself sitting in this class, like wanting to raise my hand, but not having the right because I was just there as an observer. And I'm
right.
like, I could do this. This is not rocket science. And so that is what led me to the Harvard Business School. My
Wow.
dear Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated soror.
That is incredible. The power of networks, the power of options, the power of taking advantage, being at the right place at the right time, and then being able to take advantage of the blessings that we have.
Absolutely. And being
Mm-hmm.
open to new opportunities, being open to pivoting, changing as you get new information that can advance or accelerate the path of impact and the rate of impact. Because for me, really tying back to the accident, it was not just about me anymore, but how could I take my learnings, my experiences to have the greatest impact for the larger community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to move on, Selena, because I love wine. I love South Africa. And you have got to tell me the story about Heritage Link brands.
Heritage Link Brands is really a love story when I think about
Hmm.
it, because when I look back in time at how it all came together, it was really divine in how it all transpired. Because even though I grew up in California, it's not like I grew up in a family that sat around and had wine with dinner, or that my mother had a cellar, on the back porch. And so for me, wine was really another consumer packaged good, because when I
Okay.
graduated from HBS, or the Harvard Business School, it was really a very surreal time for me personally, because
Before you do that, how long was that business school experience?
2 years.
Okay. And did you work by doing that while doing that, or did you focus solely on going to get your MBA?
Initially, I took a leave of absence from United Airlines because, again, for me, this was a check the box thing. Everyone
Hmm.
else at my team had an MBA. I did not. I saw myself as taking a leave of absence to go check the box and return back to the airline so that I could be promoted. A week into business school, September 11th happened,
Mm.
and United laid off almost 50,000 people, and my entire department was reimagined. So I found myself very early in my business school experience having to think about where I was going to work. It totally, again, it was new information. Obviously, the world was grappling with what this meant. We had to think about airline travel reimagined, but in the short term, I needed to find a job. And while I loved my experience at United, I really did. Had September 11th not happened, I would probably still be at the airline today. Um, I had to think about what other areas I felt passionate about because
Hmm.
I had, at this point in my mid 20s, I was 25, 26. I
Hmm.
realized that I did best when I had passion for the work. It couldn't just be about the money, even though the money was important. And so when I think back to that experience, I was very much influenced by the notion of understanding marketing and how I could get classically trained in that. So I actually went to work doing a summer internship and then later full time for the Procter and Gamble company and moved to Cincinnati, Ohio, first working on the Tampax Pearl brand, which was new innovation at the time. There was no Pearl. And
What
then
year, and what year was that?
this was 2001, 2002,
Okay.
summer internship. And then I came back full time, largely because of passion that I had for food, which leads to the founding of Heritage Link Brands. I came back to work on the Pringles brand when Procter and Gamble still owned that brand. And so while I love the experience and the training that I got at Procter and Gamble, I grappled with the morality of marketing potato chips to children ages 6 to 11. And because of my language skills, my focus was on Latin American marketing plans. And so I would take these incredibly fantastic business trips to Sao Paulo, Brazil, and to Mexico City, host focus groups with these children. But I just couldn't get over the fact
Sure.
that there were these natural snacks that they had in their own country. But here I was as,
Pushing.
big
Yeah.
corporate pushing potato
Sure.
chips. And so at the time, my now husband was the boyfriend, and he was, just encouraging me to think differently, explore different opportunities. And then
Okay.
eventually
Hold it. How did you meet him?
I met him at the Harvard Business School.
Oh.
Literally, he crashed my birthday party, my 27th birthday party I had with a couple of my girlfriends. And he showed up, a friend of a friend of a friend at the school. And I like to tell people he was the best birthday gift that I ever received.
I love it. Love
But
it.
20 years ago, 20 years
Okay.
ago.
Okay.
We've been married for 17 years. And at the time that I was grappling with, what do I do? Like, I'm not feeling like this is my calling. He proposed to me, and he ended up not only going to the Harvard Business School and inviting me to come live with him there and, obviously start a family and life together, but he was also doing a joint degree at the Harvard Kennedy School of Public Administration and Government, really. And
So
he got
you
a
said, a smart one too. Okay.
He's a smart one. I was the smart one, right? He was applying to the school. And then we just stayed in touch. And
Uh-huh.
when he got in, that's when he proposed to me. So that was really a major catalyst for my ability to start Heritage Link Brands. And he is my co-founder. So
Okay.
we are not only, um, life
Partners.
partners,
Yeah.
soulmates, parents to three
Parents.
children, one in high
Okay.
school, one in middle school, one in elementary school, but we are also business partners. And at the time when he proposed, I began looking for a job in the Boston area and ended up working for a Harvard alum who ran a company issuing what are called J1 visas, which are travel exchange visas for the State Department. And we would issue on behalf of the Department of State 50,000 visas for young people to come to the States to either do internships, externships, study abroad. And in my first 5 months on the job, I learned that of those 50,000 visas we were issuing, less than 50 were coming from the entire continent of Africa. And this
Wow.
is on the backdrop of um, Black Hawk Down in Somalia. The US Embassy had been bombed in Kenya. Al Qaeda had just set up operations in Mali. And there was a whole flurry of activity happening all around the continent. And I told my manager at the time, who was the CEO, if we're not talking to Africans, how do we know that they will empathize with our ideals and our values? And his response to me was, "Oh, I never thought about that. I never thought about that. Go open up a market." So I looked at 3 markets: Ghana, Nigeria, and South Africa. And I thought,
Okay.
what is going to be the most palatable for people to um, relate to both ways?
Mm-hmm.
So that ended up being South Africa. And so I went to South Africa. This was in 2005. Spent weeks opening up the market, which meant really recruiting young people from universities to come to study here and to apply for the visas. And on my very last day in Johannesburg, I was flipping a newspaper. By the way, I had lots of luck with opportunity flipping through a traditional
I
newspaper.
see. I see.
And I saw this advertisement for the first annual Soweto Wine Festival. Now, I grew up hearing about Soweto, but more as a bastion of activity fueled
Sure.
by issuing kind of a referendum on apartheid. It was where
Okay. Right.
Desmond Tutu lived. It was where
Right.
Nelson Mandela lived. And so I was very intrigued that here we were, roughly 10 plus years after the fall of, this regime. And
Right.
we're at a place where we're having a wine festival in Soweto. I want to check this out. Ended up going there despite the concierge at my very upmarket hotel in Sandton, which is like a suburb of Johannesburg, saying, "Oh, no, 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 no.
Warning.
You
Yeah.
can't go to Soweto. It's dangerous. You'll get carjacked. You'll get this, you'll get that." And I was like, if I just close my mouth, no one will even know I'm not South African, and I'll just
Mm-hmm.
kind of go with the flow because it's a wine festival. How bad and how difficult can it be?
Mm-hmm.
It was at this event where I happened to meet, literally, pun intended, the first crop of new Black wine producers who had amassed enough capital to acquire vineyard land and their own brands to begin selling to the public. I learned this incredible fact, which is South Africa has always been a wine producing region, and it produces roughly $2 billion a year of wine, but less than 1% was owned by Black South Africans, even though they're 90% of the population.
Right.
So in this environment, 4 months into my marriage, I called home and I said, "Sweetheart, I think I found the opportunity for us to have impact, leveraging my skills from P&G, my sales skills from United,
Sure.
to do something bigger, better, and more impactful, to show that through wine, we as a people are capable of excellence."
That is outstanding. Outstanding. And so you all decided to go to do this venture, and that was around when? 2007?
This was 2005. We
2005.
we had
Okay.
just gotten married in April of 2005. I went to the festival in September of '05. We started the business in October. The blessing was that we lived on campus. I had access to my old professors, his current professors, and a host of graduate students who were ready to volunteer to give their opinions on what wines they liked versus didn't like. And then in November of '05, Sharon, I found out I was pregnant with my first of 3 children. And I boohooed because I was like, what's the point of starting a
Timing.
wine company
Right.
if you can't drink the wine?
Right.
But that did not stop our show at all. It was actually a blessing, right? Because whether it was at P&G, whether it's at United, you really are deciding what to commercialize based on your target consumer base. And
Mhm.
so we allowed for a year and a half of market research, quantitative and qualitative research, to then eventually launch in 2007 with Whole Foods being our very first customer.
But that is such an awesome story, and I feel like, wow, there's just so much to uncover here. But let's do this because I know I need to. First of all, I want to know when the Selena Cuffe story is going to come out. When's the documentary? So we can see all of this because it's just an incredible, incredible story. So let's talk a little bit about how did you grow that business, and then if we could walk from that into your decision to then add on Sodexo Magic, that would be great.
Sure. So really, I have to give Procter and Gamble a lot of credit for teaching me how to commercialize business and how do you take a
Mm,
concept and
mhm,
literally go to market from that. And so
mhm,
I really followed a very systematic approach to how to think about taking all of the interdisciplinary aspects that go into creating a product to then identifying distributors and customers to launching. And I benefited from where we were societally around wine because in 2006, 2007, you started to see various state legislatures become much more comfortable with online distribution of wine.
okay.
That was a major catalyst for us, and the fact that we had the resources of the Harvard Business School to capitalize off of that brand to bring attention to what ultimately became a way for the world to take a pulse of how South Africa was doing as a new democracy through the medium of wine. And
Mhm,
so it was through taking those steps, launching with Whole Foods, which has a brand that is aligned with wanting more and having greater value out of products than just it being commoditized, that
mhm,
ultimately worked in the favor of us bringing on additional customers from Super Value, which at the time owned Jewel Osco, Shaw's, Albertson, so large, big banner grocery stores. And then
sure.
we worked with one of the largest distribution houses for wine in the country, Southern, now Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. And that really helped to advance what we did. Coincidentally, in 2008, we began to do business with Sodexo. And
Wow.
Sodexo has a variety of industry sectors in which it plays, from hospitals to universities to schools, but also corporate services and airline lounges. And as we began to build our book of business and naturally, we began doing business with United Airlines, Delta Airlines, and American Airlines. And so we would host marketing events at the lounges in some of their international gateways. Those international gateways and those lounges were being run by Sodexo. And so in 2008, I had the serendipitous opportunity of hosting an event for American Airlines where I was hosting a wine tasting. And the keynote speaker was Mr. Earvin Magic Johnson because Sodexo Magic
Sure.
was the food service provider for the airline's headquarters in Dallas, as well as for some of the airline lounges throughout the country. So little did I know that 13 years later, it would come full circle and these relationships with, us being a diverse supplier to Sodexo North America, this chance encounter with, you know, the I would say he's a hero. He's my boss, but he's also a hero because I remember being 5 years old when the Lakers won the first of five championships,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so what ended up happening, I would say probably about 7 years after that was, the election of a new president and recognizing in that moment that all of the work that I was doing to advance and showcase all of the Black excellence that was coming out of South Africa, I realized that we needed it here in the United States too.
Mhm.
And while that industry, the wine industry, which is South Africa's largest agricultural export, by the way, does not reflect equity in any form or fashion, there are so many industries right here in the United States of America that also suffer from that same legacy that needs transformation. And
Mhm.
so it was really in looking at my own backyard, and at this point, by 2016, I had 3 children to think about that were growing up here in the United States, and I had to think about what type of impact could I have in being able to do what we were starting to do and continue to do in the wine industry, but how do I ensure that that impact is felt and experienced not just by me as a diverse supplier, but thousands of diverse suppliers where I can have the impact. And so that was really what inspired me to join SodexoMagic, where every day we strive to be the industry leader that champions not only supplier diversity, but economic development and sustainability so that we are the rising tide that lifts all boats. And I am proud to share that at the close of our fiscal year 21, we spent roughly 49% with diverse suppliers, where in
Bravo.
traditional corporate America,
Bravo.
it's closer to 1 to 2%. And
Hmm.
so luckily, I've got a boss who's been at this effort to bring equity and to serve equality to our communities for 30 years now. And so I learn every day. I work with portfolio companies across the Magic Johnson enterprise, just the same as I work with Sodexo North America and other countries to affect equity, to affect inclusion through economic development and a mindset around bringing generational wealth and closing the generational wealth gap that I just refuse to accept because I've got
Mm.
kids.
Okay, kids. You know what? I'm listening to you, Selena, and I can only imagine the conversation you had many years ago with your mother, Veronica Saunders. And what I see and what I hear and what I feel is that same drive that propelled you, motivated you as a child to make that difference. It's clear that it's still alive and breathing in you today, and we are the beneficiaries of it. It's, just how awesome is that. And so I just kind of thank you on behalf of everything that you do. And so you have three kids. You said high school, middle school, and elementary school. God bless you. So is that girls, boys mix, or what is that?
So my older two are boys, and
Okay.
my 15-year-old, believe it or not, is 6'4". So every day I look at him and think, I can't believe you came out of my body. Even my 13-year-old, he's
Uh-huh.
almost 6'2". And then my
Okay.
7-year-old, my daughter, she is, I mean, she's all legs, and she's
Hmm.
the one that my sons call the boss, because she, if there's someone that I do not worry about in terms of speaking her truth, having a voice, and being fearless, and being groomed to be fearless.
Hmm.
It's my daughter. I cannot wait to see what all of my children achieve, but to see her with these tall boys and just hold her own, it is heartwarming to say.
That is, look, did you put a ball in their hand or what?
They do have, yes, different types for sure.
Okay. So that is just so heartwarming. That is so heartwarming to kind of hear. So let me just ask you a couple of things before we close out. This has just been a wonderful conversation, and I hope you don't mind me delving into who you are, because when we look at entrepreneurship, I call it 2.0. It is not entrepreneurship 50 years ago. Our entrepreneurs are such more experienced and savvy people, and the fact that you've been able to, throughout your career and life, leverage relationships, right, and be able to reach back, pull folks along, but more importantly, along the way, being able to take advantage of your journey and life experiences. I relate, particularly when you talked about Procter and Gamble. I'm a GE person, and so when you look at all those things that you learned in corporate America, and you bring it forward in terms of processes, in terms of go to market strategies, when you look at, those are number one corporations in the world, and how they do it, and being able to take those philosophies and be able to apply it. And so that is the kind of lessons I've learned in just listening to you, and how to leverage all of that. And so I'm just waiting for the book. I'm waiting for the documentary. I'm waiting for the story, because there's so many stories to be held there. But just tell us, in terms of, can you tell our audience, how do they find out opportunities with Sodexo Magic, with Heritage Brands?
Yeah, the easiest way is to visit our website. So sodexomagic.com is where you can learn about all that we are doing not only to deliver quality of life services, but we are always looking for diverse suppliers. We have goals that are set against growing the amount of diverse suppliers that we work with. It is the reason why clients select SodexoMagic, because they recognize, especially corporations that are at various points in their journey with DE&I,
Mm-hmm.
there are people that, in companies that don't know how to identify ways of working with um, vendors that are not in their existing supply chain. So we are always looking for ways to engage entrepreneurs. And then Heritage Link Brands.com also is a great place to identify wonderful wines, obviously, but also we are constantly working with other producers and other entrepreneurs that are seeking to have impact that benefits the greater African diaspora, right?
Okay.
Sodexo Magic is much more domestic, and Heritage Link Brands, our footprint is
Mm-hmm.
majority outside of the United States. One of the most incredible decisions that we made, and one of the greatest fortunes that we have, is early on making investments in vineyards in South Africa. And so we have, on the wine side, constantly reinvested our profits into telling the story of producers there, and have a very close relationship with the Seven Sisters Vineyard in South Africa, which is all Black women owned and sits in the heart of the very best, like the Napa of the South African winelands, which is called Stellenbosch. And so if there is an interest to engage on that front, I also encourage people to visit the Seven Sisters Vineyards in South Africa.
That is awesome. And so, in visiting the vineyards and visiting Heritage Brand, you're able to, consumers can purchase.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. That is just an absolute, and I'm going to tell all my friends
Please
about
do.
doing that. But you know what? I hope that this isn't the end of the conversation with us, because we've just learned so much from you, and I know that there is a lot more lessons to be learned. We are celebrating our 50th year, Selena, and what I'd like to be able to do is to, and because you are members of the organization, I would. It's just a wonderful story. I would like to be able to highlight you guys throughout the year, and so
Oh,
we
wow.
would
Thank
love
you.
to be able to do that. I mean, because you're just the quintessential organizations that set the bar high, but and just role models for everybody, and just so inspiring. At the end of the day, it's just the inspiration. I think that if we can share, that would just be um, incredibly fortunate for us. And so I
Oh,
ask if we
good.
could do that um, as we kind
Not
of move
only
forward.
is that a yes, but when COVID allows us to be
Hmm.
great, or subsides, I would love to visit with you. I keep an
Hmm.
office in Gaithersburg, Maryland, and
Hmm.
when life is normal, I get out there once a month. So I would love to engage with the capital region.
Absolutely. And we are not adverse to flying to the West Coast. And so
Come on.
we can do that as well. But thank
Beautiful.
you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Selena S. Cuff, Sodexo
Thank
Magic, but
you.
also the co-founder with her honey with the Heritage brands. What a great story! Thank you so much.
You.
Thank you
Thank you,
so
Sharon,
much.
for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for spending the time with us, because if we know nothing else, you are quite busy. And so we appreciate your time. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have it here and you've heard it here. What an incredible story. And thank you so very, very much. And before we bring our time to a close, I need to thank the folks that have actually paid the bills. And so, if we could look at um, our sponsors, if we look at some of our sponsors that have our title sponsors, Exelon continues to be our title sponsor with BGE and Pepco, our Exelon companies. And then, of course, we have the Hilton, AMCAS, one of our premier minority businesses, Capital One, um, CompuGain, SB and Company, and Stroud Priest, minority businesses. And then this, of course, if you're listening to us, let me just go through some of our sponsors, which is AARP, Allianz, AT&T, BAE Systems, BWI, Thurgood Marshall Airport, Dominion Energy, the Ellison Group, another one of our minority businesses, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FRS, Horseshoe, Ideal Electric, Leidos, Lockheed Martin, M&T Bank, Mass Mutual, one of our newer corporate sponsors, McCormick, Northrop Grumman, Peapod, PNC, Salesforce, Sodexo, Truist, United States Postal Service, Washington Gas, the Metro, WSSC Water, Zillion Technologies, one of our premier MBEs, along with Zones. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot that will continue to go on with our um, hot chat podcast as we move forward. We ask you to stay tuned to all the things that will be happening for us during our 50th year activities. And if you like today, you're going to like more. I'd like to thank um, before we go, I'd like to thank our coronavirus response and relief team, headed up by Sonia Bigelow Smith, along with Renee, and of course with um, Nicole Miles, Renee Sanford, I'm sorry, Nicole Miles, Latoya Moore, and our Graybo team, our production team, for all your hard work. And lastly, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube at CRMSDC is our handle, and you can listen to our podcast on Spotify, Google, and Apple. Until next time, I appreciate your time, and we'll see you then. Bye bye.